What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Talking Lots. I'm your host here, Eli Stoehr. Unfortunately, we do not have Mr. Todd Gurrell on this one, but I've brought on the one and only Mikey Saps from our team. What's going on, Mikey Saps?
Hey, what's up? Glad to be here. Glad I could fill in for the Todd. Yeah, I'm usually definitely the fill-in guy. So sorry, guys. I apologize in advance. But yeah, let's do this.
Dude, you were just telling me just before we started shooting this podcast, you were the fill-in guy for playing goalie, right? Like, so you play hockey, right? We play on Thursday mornings. You're the fill-in guy sometimes for other leagues and whatnot.
Of course. Yeah, everybody's got my number. You know, when their main guy doesn't show, they know I'm going to come through and, average, sometimes above average. But, hey, somebody
don't get too cocky.
Somebody's got to do the work, you know. So, yeah, get some playing time and usually don't have to pay when you fill in. So, I mean, it's a win-win.
They often let goalies just, walk right on too, and not like a lot of the times goalies don't even have to pay.
Yeah. I mean, like if anyone's played hockey before, stick time. I mean, come on out and just take some pucks to the face, and free of charge. So, I mean, it's a tough job, but gets me by.
I love it. Well, Mikey Sapp, so what we're going to talk about today is building confidence as a salesperson. This is a topic that I'm really glad we're actually talking about, because you've been in sales for some time now. You've been in a few different industries, and especially as you transition from each industry too, like you have to, like, there's different competencies that need to be built, right, within each industry, whether it's the product knowledge or the customers. There's all kinds of different changes, right? And you've been in sales for a handful of years, so I even in the short time that I've been in sales the past 5 years. I've seen changes throughout the industry, so I'm sure that you've seen changes yourself. So let's dive in a little bit about your journey in becoming a salesperson, and just like how you did build that confidence. Like when your first sales job, how did you build the confidence day one? Maybe you didn't have it built day one, but how did you grow into that?
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge thing in sales for sure. I mean, that's what sets the best, from the average sales guy is those top guys. I mean, you can just, they radiate like top, and I'm more or less the guy that kind of, like you said, product knowledge. I like to know what I'm talking about. Of course, early on in my career, you just kind of lean on relationship building, people person. I mean, if you can talk with anybody, you can slowly navigate to get to your end goal. But yeah, I think the product knowledge was big for me, because I definitely, if I'm selling something in the end, I want to be knowledgeable for the customer so they can build that confidence and trust in me. But yeah, I mean, years ago when I started in roofing, I mean, I did some minor roofing in college, throughout college, and, knew very little. Obviously knew very little about the pavement industry. You guys were great assets with helping me get there. But yeah, I think gaining that knowledge of the product, that gives you the initial confidence to get going. But yeah, in sales, there's highs and lows, and the more confident you are, you can navigate, through those low times.
How did you gain the confidence in the product? Like, what was your process there? Did you lean on people, or?
Oh yeah, I am a big advocate of just asking questions, just constantly, and doing things around the house. I think you and I talked, YouTube is a great asset for when you just have general questions. But yeah, I would kind of lean heavily, kind of get a feel for the people around you that really know the industry, and you kind of latch onto them. And then I just kind of leaned on personable people skill.
Yeah.
And then, it takes time for sure. And I mean, I've been in sales for 15 years. And, I still have days where, you're not as confident as you think you should be. So I think it's definitely a learning experience. I'm always open to learn new ways to keep the confidence up, because there's definitely times where you just feel like you're doing everything right and everything's going wrong.
Yeah, I think there's really, a couple pieces to this. I look at it as like, as you're in sales, you do need that product knowledge, right? But when you're first starting out, you often don't, right? But you still need to get started. So it's like, how do you bridge that gap between not having the product knowledge and starting to sell, starting to create relationships? Well, for me, it was, man, I just got to get the right people around me. I just need to get, the people in this organization who know exactly what they're talking about around me, and learn from them and ask them questions. If I have a project, right? If I have something that's going on, I'm going to pull them in. Tony Grout's a great example on our team. I'm going to pull Tony Grout in if I have a specific question on a project that I don't really know exactly how to answer. And then I think the other piece of it too is like building confidence in learning how to, build relationships with people. And one of the things that that Todd Gurrell on our team actually really built a lot of confidence in me. This is a handful of years ago. I had a big opportunity and a big big meeting with a big client, right? All the way across the state. So I drove out there, and Todd goes, it was really one of my first big meetings. And Todd goes, "Hey, do you want me to go with you?" Like, more than happy to go with you, more than happy to be a part of this meeting. And I was like, to be honest, I think I'm good. Unless you think you should come with. Todd goes, "No, like, if you think you're good, like, I trust you." He goes, "You know what? Just be yourself. That's all. Just be yourself." And you know what happened? That meeting turned into a pretty big client of ours. And that client, actually, it's pretty funny. That client at the end of that meeting, they go, "So, have you ever considered being on the other side of facilities and managing facilities?"
Trying to recruit.
Yeah, they're trying to recruit me. I was like, "Brother, I love my position. Really appreciate the offer. But I know we're going to be a huge asset to you guys in your organization." And it was just cool. So like, it was just like, dude, just be yourself. Like, you don't need to like be someone you're not. Just go be yourself. And from that day forward, it's been like dropping the bucket when it comes to meetings and setting these. I mean, have you felt the same way?
Oh, 100%. And, one little, to get a little granular on that is, and I feel like customers respect it. And if they ask you a question, like specific questions, asphalt, concrete, paving, it's, "Hey, let me check on it and I'll find out for you." If you do not know the answer, just let them know that you will find out the answer. And I feel like they really receive that well, and, don't penalize you in a way on their thoughts of you. Because in the end, you're just trying to help them. You can say, "Well, it could be a couple different things, but let me find out. Let me talk to my operations guys and I'll get back to you." And I always use that when I'm really backed up against a wall and have no idea, what they're looking.
I'll be honest. I don't really believe in this notion of, fake it till you make it, right? Like,
Yep.
To some extent, like, yes, you have to believe before you can be, absolutely. But this whole fake it till you make it makes it so that people go into situations that they maybe shouldn't be in without the help of somebody else.
For sure.
Right. So like, a good example is if, let's say, you have this big project in front of you in the paving world, and you're like, I'm just gonna roll with it and hope for the best. And you don't bring in an expert from the outside, and you're not honest with the customer about that. Like, dude, if there's a big project that I'm working on that I don't have the answer to of how something's going to work or how something's going to be taken care of, I'm going to be honest with the customer and say, to be honest, I don't know that, but I have people on my team who do, and I'm going to pull them into this project and help out. And that's the culture here at TPG, right? Like, everyone's willing to help out. But yeah, I don't really believe in that idea of like fake it till you make it, so to speak. It's more of like, yes, you do need to believe before you can become, but that comes through action, that comes through reps, that doesn't really come through faking it. It comes through doing the action and having somebody help you with.
For sure. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And, I feel like if you're always open to learn, and you never have that I know it all attitude, you'll be just fine.
100%. You got to be a lifelong learner.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Do you read a lot of books?
I have been more for sure. Yeah. It's, after I read books and things like that, you feel like I conversate differently, or you just feel more educated. And it's just different outlook on life for sure.
The way that I've approached reading books, so I'm not a huge reader. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge reader, and I honestly feel like my reading skill is like not very high. Like I just feel like
Try reading a children's book to your kids, and the way they word those things, you're just like, man, how did I pass high school sometimes? But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. So like, I'm not a huge reader. So like, I listen to a lot of books and I listen to a lot of podcasts. But when I do read, I do try to read. I think it's good for me. I've really kind of changed the way that I think about reading. I used to think about like, all right, I got to dive into this book and get every single nugget out of this book that I got to remember the whole book. Well, now when I read or when I listen to a book, I'm thinking like, all right, there's probably 1, 2, 3 key things that I'm looking to get out of this book. And if I can get 1, 2, or 3 key elements that I will remember in life, or that I can take and implement, tomorrow, then I've accomplished exactly what I set out to do when I go in and read a book. So that's me. I mean, is it kind of the same way for you, or you look
very similar? And kind of to roll that into kind of confidence talk, listen to podcasts, and our leader Brian Hess, if you listen to his podcast, I mean, the motivational speaking that he delivers, it just gives you a different reset sometimes that you're needing to just kind of refresher on life and work and everything. And it's kind of, you take those key points away from that as well. So yeah, I mean, podcasts, books, whatever it is, as long as you're trying to gain some additional knowledge, it'll come. And it just gives you a reset, I think, because a lot of times you get just stuck in these ruts and you're just doing over and over the same thing. Sometimes you feel like you're not moving forward, but I feel like it gives you a different outlook. Little refresh.
Brian Hess, actually, it's Brian Hess, CEO of the Pavement Group. One of the things that he told me years ago was, and it relates exactly what you just said, listening to podcasts, listening to books, reading books, etc., is sometimes you have to borrow confidence. So think about that. Sometimes you have to borrow confidence because you might not have it at that present moment. And so that might be getting somebody involved in a project or getting somebody involved in something, right? It might be listening to the Brian Hess show or the Ed Mylett show, you know what I mean? Or something that's going to encourage you. It might be reading and taking and applying and talking about those things. It might be having a one-on-one with somebody, with Brian or with a mentor or something like that, to where, you might not have the confidence, but they can help build that in you. And you essentially, by doing that, borrow that confidence. That's what I did early on. I worked with Brian in a tiny little, when we first started the Pavement Group, it was a tiny little, it was like what you guys are looking at right now. Like it was probably as big as this like little set right here. Not as big as this whole room that we're in, but like what you guys are looking in the camera, like as big as this desk and all the way back to the wall here. And Brian and I worked out of an office that big. He was in one corner, I was in the other, with each of our desks. And when I had to make a phone call or when he had to make a phone call, we'd have to walk out of the office or like go walk around the parking lot while we made the phone call because the other one was on another phone call. And so, being so close to Brian, almost through like, just being so close, like I was just able to pick up on, I was like a sponge just by sitting there listening. And, he would hear me talk about, I'd have conversations with contractors or with customers, and he would help critique me or give me feedback, whenever possible. So, through that and through having Brian right there, I was able to essentially borrow his confidence, and it just helped build that in me. And then through that, I was able to get reps in. So that's the other piece of confidence that I wanted to hit on, is like, You have to put in the reps if you want to build the confidence. If you're going to cold call people, I remember my first cold call. It was awful.
How'd it go?
It was awful, dude. Literally, it was awful. It was years and years ago. It was before the pavement group. And I remember calling this. I don't remember who it was now, but I remember making the phone call. My voice was shaky. I was so nervous. My hands were probably sweating. I had this big script that I just followed. It was absolutely terrible. But now today I can just pick up the phone and call anybody. And that is built through reps. I have the confidence. It's built through reps. You'd have to put in the reps, and the first 100 are going to be terrible.
Yep.
It's going to be something that you have to accept. The first 100, the first 150, the first 50, whatever it is for you, like, you have to put those in. You have to accept that the first ones are probably going to be bad. That's okay. That's okay. That's how you learn.
I mean, I've done thousands of cold calls, and I mean, early on, you'd have the guy's name written down. You just flat out butcher it, call him by something different. You're just like, yeah. It's like, well, I'm not getting this guy today. Maybe we'll call him in a couple more months, but that's it. I mean, it's all about repetition. Setting those goals for cold calls, I think, is huge. But yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I think it goes beyond cold calls, right? It's like literally anything that you want to do in life. Like, this is applicable to anything. You want to build confidence in something, put in the reps. Start with the first one, and then go to the second, and just take one step in front of the other. And the more that you do that, the more confidence that you're going to build. Today, I can pick up the phone and call anyone. I'm cool with it. I'll call anyone, any customer. And like, sometimes, people in our industry, they might not have the confidence yet. And they're like, I really want to go after this whale of a customer. I know they're a big one. We got one shot at the apple. And they're like super afraid to, make the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you might not want to practice your first cold call on the, biggest customer you could find. But, after you've learned those reps, like, after you've done those reps, like, go for it, man. Like, you just got to start. It's not going to
go.
Yeah, it's not going to go terrible. One of the things I always think of too is, like, think about the best possible case scenario. What, when you're thinking of a scenario and you're thinking, you're overthinking it, right? Think of the best possible outcome. Now think of the worst possible outcome. Neither of those are probably going to happen, and it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Like, think of the absolute best case scenario, and then think of the absolute worst case scenario. You get cursed out, you call somebody, you get cursed out, this, that. And then, you could think of a million things that could go wrong. You're like, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it rarely ever happens. I know a lot of people are afraid, but, generally people are nice. The worst you're probably going to get is, no thanks, not at this time. And honestly, if you're not failing, you're not trying. Like, I'm a big, firm believer on if you're not making mistakes, I'm not trying new things enough. I'm not really sticking my neck out there and trying to move forward. It's part of it.
Yeah. So we're talking about cold calls. We're talking about confidence, cold calls. I was talking about the first cold call that I made. I would love to hear your first experience for your first cold call. Do you remember it?
I do not remember it. It's been
maybe your first handful. Do you remember how it went?
It's been so long ago. I know there's been a lot of bad ones. There's been so many, honestly. I do not.
Any that are memorable that like
I said, calling people by the wrong name, fumbling my words, just rearranging the company name because you're so you're not thinking about what you're doing because you're just jumping in, and you when you don't have those reps, you're butchering, you're not smooth. It's you're sensing the person's voice and tone on the other part of the line, and you're just like, this guy's pissed off already that I already called him, and that's all you're thinking about. I wish I had an exact example for you.
I do think, again, we're still on the topic of cold calls. I do think that it all it all boils down to your intentions too. Like, what are you trying to achieve when you're making that call? So like, again, cold calls, it's a big thing when it comes to confidence. Like, what are you really trying to achieve? I'm not trying to sell anyone when I make that first phone call.
No.
Like, if I'm trying to do that, yeah, I'm not going to be successful. If I call them to make an intro, make myself available to them, and like literally, I'm just trying to set the next appointment, right? Like, hey, like, when can we talk next? Like, here's what we do. A very brief pitch, like not even trying to like sell you on anything. It's just like, I want them to get to know me and what we do. So I'm building a relationship. I'm starting this. And it's going to take some follow-up. It's going to take more conversations. They're not going to give me all their paving projects on one cold call. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people get wrong too.
Yeah.
When they are approaching cold calls and like they think in their mind, and it's a confidence thing, like, oh, if I don't close this deal on this cold call, if I don't get an opportunity on this cold call, I've failed. So I better, they have these expectations that are way up here. And if you can just, boil down your intentions to, when I'm making a cold call, my goal is to introduce myself. If an opportunity comes out of that, fantastic. But my goal is to introduce myself so that when they need me, they will know me and they will call me and they will get a hold of me. Right?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, it basically is an introduction. That's all you're trying to do. Get your name out there, make him aware of you, him or her. Just introduce your company. But yeah, and if you have any needs, you need any help right now. And if not, 9 times out of 10, it's a no. You mark them down. You wait a couple months and you hit them again. I mean, timing is very key on cold calls and prospecting, as you know. But yeah, it's just repetition, getting your name in front of them, make them see you, hear you more. As they start answering the phone 2 or 3 times in 6-month span, that's huge. Now you have somebody that knows you. Now those calls aren't, rough anymore. Is this guy's heard your voice 2 or 3 times, and he or she's more susceptible of giving you some opportunity. But yeah, that's all it is. It's this intro. But you pretty much said it perfectly.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on building confidence as a salesperson? Any key takeaways that you really want to hit home for any listeners?
I know sales is just an up and down, tackle. It's, and, sometimes you have high confidence, when everything's going good, like it's going great, you're winning stuff you didn't even think you could. And, everything's going right. I think a big key is to stay humble when things are going good. Just so you don't veer off track, you get too cocky, I can't be stopped. Everything I touch turns to gold. Not the way to be, because there will be lows. You will lose. And then I think your mind just gets blurry at that point. If you just get too confident, it could be bad. And I am one of the most humble people you meet. And I think, thank you. Almost probably too humble, where I probably don't come off confident whatsoever. But I think that's really key, is to stay humble when times are going good, just so you don't get lost.
Bro, I'll tell you, bro, real quick. You're a dog, bro. You just sit there. You're a quiet dog. You just put in the work. And to me, I see the confidence that you have, and I also see you have to be humble. So, I don't even think that because you're humble, I don't even think that takes away from your confidence. I think that because you put in the work and you have the numbers to show for it, you have the results to show for it, that it's pretty obvious that you are confident in your abilities and what you do. Confident on the phone, you're confident in projects. If you don't know something, you bring somebody in, but you also operate with a sense of being humble about it. You've had good weeks, you've had good months, and honestly, I sometimes don't even know about it until it moves over in our system, and I'm like, Sap, you closed the big one.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm kind of like when the money's in the bank, you can celebrate kind of guy. Because not to downplay any wins, and I think celebrating wins is huge. I think that helps confidence, and it makes those good times even better. But yeah, staying humble is, I think, number one is to keep going. The more humble guys I've known in the industry and just sales, they're just more,
They're focused on
they're focused. It's
long
just,
term.
and they're more consistent with their sales. They're not up and down with huge months and then low, for months over time. It's just consistency across the board. So I try to keep that line for sure.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. Appreciate you jumping on here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, we'll have to pick up this conversation. Yeah, I think this is a really important topic for salespeople, and not just salespeople, but like anyone that's like trying to break into their career. As a young person, I can attest to that. Like, dude, I didn't have the confidence right away. I had to borrow it, and I had to put in the reps, and I had to get people around me who were willing to pour into me to help build that confidence. And I also had to be willing to do all of that and put in the reps. And so it's an important conversation, specifically in sales, definitely. But just across the board, like confidence is a big something that's very important. So thank you for jumping on. We'll have to do this one again and dive a little bit more into a few things. But with that, guys, this is another episode of Talking Box. We appreciate you guys jumping on and listening. Tune into the next one here shortly, and we'll see you later. Peace.